Sunday. Welcome to another episode of True Story Live. We got it right this time. So we're going to have a good show for you tonight. And tonight's topic is We Are the Champions, No Time for Losers. And we'll go more into that in just a moment. So if you're listening to the playback and you do not prefer to hear all of the friendly frivolities at the beginning, then you can fast forward to the 10-minute mark and we will start the actual broadcast. So last week it was just Glenn and myself until the very end when Matthias came. Matthias is running a little bit late. He just messaged me and said he's running about 15 minutes late or so, but he will be a part of the broadcast. And I don't know about Steve. I talked to him earlier, and we will kind of discuss a little bit about what's going on with him. But he didn't contact me and let me know whether he was going to be here with us tonight or not. So I'm not sure. He might be in the middle of something, and we certainly understand. But for tonight, we have an excellent panel, if not the same amount of people that we normally have. But we'll see what happens. So first of all, we'll introduce the incredible Virginian Jen. Jen, how are you?
Virginian Jen, say that 3 times
Virginian
fast.
Jen.
I'm doing great. Doing absolutely fantastic.
Good. Now, do you consider yourself a Virginian now that you've lived there longer probably than where you were born?
I guess so. Yeah, 86, 87. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I still feel, I know Virginia is kind of in the middle, but I still, well, I don't know. There's parts of me that I still feel like a southern girl, even though I don't have the accent.
You do not.
But I do love the North. I like, there's pieces and parts that I like about both.
Yeah.
So I like being in the middle.
Excellent. I have lived in the South longer than I ever have lived in the North, but I wouldn't consider myself, typically, I don't consider myself a Southerner. But if I'm hanging around a bunch of rednecks, then of course I would. It makes it easier to just pick up the Southern accent a little bit, fit in. Try not to do that as much as possible, though. And I've talked about how my dad didn't like the Southern accent, and he did not allow us to speak improperly. That was his perception, that people from the South didn't speak properly, and they spoke too slowly. So it was kind of bred out of me, so to speak. A miracle. Also, we have with us Glenn from Australia again tonight. Glenn, how are you doing where you are, my friend?
I'm very well, and I live in New South Wales, but I'm a Queenslander.
Queenslander?
Jinx.
That'd be a good title of a movie.
Queenslander.
There could be only one.
Yep. Really and truly. Especially.
There you go. Glad to hear it. Glenn's working on his house, so he moved in, what was it, close to Christmas time? December? How long have you been in there?
I think it's about September or October.
October, okay. Yeah.
September, October, yeah, somewhere there.
My apologies. So you're working on painting and still situating stuff, because you're a one-man show over there with the...
Absolutely. I just do bits as I can. I work on my business and I work on the house.
Yeah.
And I work on keeping my wife alive.
There you go.
It's a 3, and the cat, so that's 4 things.
Yeah. You've got quite a frisky little cat there too, huh?
Coco.
Yeah, he sure does. This morning I cleaned out all our cabinets and pulled the drawers out. Within 30 seconds, he's inside them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hopeless.
He likes small spaces.
He likes small spaces and adventure.
Nice.
I'll have to get him a set of headphones so he can come on to yourself.
Yeah. he and I will get along swimmingly.
You and Coco.
I'll bet. If you do what he says.
Oh no. Maybe not then.
No, he's good.
Yeah.
He won't. He'll be nice to you.
As long as you feed him and pay attention to him when he wants, you're good to go.
Yeah, he likes his affection. And he likes his games, a bit like a people.
Yeah, sure. Likes his games. Yeah, that ties in the topic tonight a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Also
Thank
joining
you.
us. Sorry. Also joining us tonight, we have Esteban from the YouTube channel Melted Zone. Esteban, how are you, my friend?
Doing good. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We had tried to get Esteban on last week, and he was really apologetic about not getting the link or not being able to be part of the show, which we certainly understand. So we wanted you to join us this week as well. So that's great. We're glad to have you. It helps, especially fill in the have more people to comment. That's what I like. I don't like 10 people on the panel. That's too much. It's too much back and forth, in my opinion. But four or five people on the panel, I think, is perfect. So we can get some different opinions going and things like that. And yeah, that's kind of the way that it makes things flow more evenly. So thanks for being part of the show with us, Esteban. We appreciate it. And we have a good topic tonight. I'm sure you can weigh in on. All right. So hello to the chat. I see Mike W. Of course, he's changed his name now. It's the Big Kawate Kahuna. Nope, I'm not saying
Kakawate?
Kawate.
Kakawate? Is that right, Mike?
Kawate.
You should have just put Monocle Man.
Yeah, Monocle Man or Peanut Head or
so much easier to say.
I don't know.
Although Kahuna, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
that.
Kahuna's great. That's easy to say. The big.
Okay. He did the what is it? How did he do it?
Kakawata.
Kakawate.
Kakawate. Sounds Polynesian.
It does sound Polynesian. Yes, it sure does.
Like, is that my new name? Jen has.
Jen has it right.
Jen has Jenna.
Jen has it right.
That's my Hawaiian name.
Jen has it. All right. Glad to have you here, Mike. Appreciate you being here, and I'm sure some other people are getting the notification. So here's the problem with taking any time off from the show is that when you start broadcasting again, people are like, well, forget that you're there. So kind of happened last week. So we'll get back in the groove of things. We sure will. So Matthias will be here in a little bit, and he'll come in and we can welcome him whenever he shows up. And still don't know about Steve. All right, so I'm going to start a little bit early. I said 10-minute mark, but we went through the introductions fairly quickly. So I'm going to dive right into it. So for tonight, the topic is We Are the Champions, No Time for Losers. Going with something iconic tonight, suggest you have a read and listen to the lyrics before we get started on tonight's show. It's one of those songs that gets into your head. It sure does. And we've posted the link for the song. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. So when you get a chance, definitely go and check out the lyrics and listen to the song. Couldn't resist this part of the lyrics. For you, Steve. And I need to go on and on and on. We love you, buddy. Our adventure is awakening, specifically the words creativity, enthusiasm, willingness, and motivation, or anything else considered part of the equation. Time after time, I've done my sentence, but committed no crime. Exactly. Think about it. How many of us have inadvertently labeled ourselves as losers, and we don't even realize it? So what's a loser? For this show, it's about denying oneself self-belief. Life becomes a constant inner turmoil of paying dues, second-guessing what others want from you first, trying to please the unpleasable, and no matter what you do, how hard you try, still feeling like a loser. Awakening is about coming out of this shadow with your integrity and core values intact and moving forward. To break the cycle, we need to ask ourselves what is important and relevant to us. Think of that job we don't like. Is it a valid reason to leave a job because there's no enthusiasm or opportunity to be creative? Are we a loser if we stay? Are we a loser if we leave? Is it the money that counts or our peace of mind? Where's the balance? A relationship heading for the rocks? Are you a loser if you do nothing? Just keep repeating the same strategies, hoping for a different result? Or the alternative? Do you have the willingness and motivation to try a different path? Beliefs is another touchy subject. How often do people with one set of beliefs or interpretation look at others as losers? Why does it seem to come down to semantics more than it does love and respect? However, who is the real loser? Like it or not, there's a lot of egos put on the line with this beliefs topic. To the outsider, this looks totally crazy. Where the passion and joy of an individual counts for little if they don't quite see eye to eye. Steve, this one is for you. Seriously, if a person of integrity feels the need to apologize for what they wholeheartedly believe, where does that leave the rest of us? Is awakening the very instant one realizes that certain people need to be left behind and others embraced? Yourself, for instance. If you choose to submit yourself to the expectations of others, you subject yourself to a life of insecurity. And that's no pleasure cruise. More like the Titanic, going down. We are the champions, my friends. All you need to do is believe. All right.
Nice.
Yeah, that is nice. I really, really like this particular topic, and I think it's timely. Obviously, that was intentional on Glenn's part. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and if Steve had joined us, I would really love to have him kind of share a little bit. I don't feel like sharing his specific situation publicly without talking to him about it is appropriate. So since he did post a video on YouTube, just kind of sharing, asking for prayer, I feel like I can talk a little bit about that. So Steve is going through a personal situation. That's how I referred to it in the video. And asking for prayer. So I did have a chance to talk with Steve a little bit on the phone. And I do understand some details, but just for the sake, until I get the green light from him, we'll just talk in generalities about what Steve's going through. But we can be more specific about some of the things when we get to the questions. Excuse me for 1 second. Excuse me. Okay. So on the topic, let me fix something real quick. Here we go. Do it like that. I hate talking to myself while on the, but I seem to be doing it anyway. Nope.
Somebody's crazy.
And someone. I think, Janet, you're only crazy if you talk to yourself and answer back. I think that.
Oh, okay. Then you're not crazy.
Right. Thanks. Okay, so in the first part for the first question for the panel, so awakening is about coming out of the shadow with your integrity and core values intact and moving forward. To break the cycle, we need to ask ourselves what is important and relevant to us. I think that's a good place to start. I don't see any other questions. No, there are questions above.
Did you want me to read the first one?
Sure.
Okay, to break this cycle, we need to add. Did you just read this?
Yep.
Okay, that's the first one.
Okay, just wanted to be sure.
I was like, why does this sound familiar?
To break the cycle, we need to ask ourselves what is important and relevant to us. I'll start with you, Jen. So in breaking any cycle, you ask yourself what is important or relevant to us.
Wow, I'm just going to dive right in with this past week.
I love it.
I accepted a job. I was looking for a full-time job, and everything about this job looked great on paper. I have never worked at a doctor's office before, but I was like, I love, well, I was about to say I love the body. I love how the human body is constructed, and it was a chiropractor office. I believe in chiropractic care. I'm really about it. This was like upper cervical spine care, which I just really dig. It's just very interesting. And the couple was really sweet, and really, really authentic and really about helping people and not just creating a patient for life. So they're getting paid and making big bucks. They're really about healing people and getting them to a point where they don't have to actually keep coming,
Right.
if that's possible. So, anyway, I showed up on the first day and was just in for a rude awakening. It wasn't, again, like I said, they were delightful,
Mhm.
but I've never worked at a doctor's office before. And it was just thinking about the big kahuna. I got like completely slammed with the biggest wave of paperwork I've ever even come in contact with. I couldn't even ever grasp
Nice.
how much paperwork that I have so much respect for people that work in doctor's offices and stuff now, because I just was there 3 days and it was insanity. So had a little bit of a breakdown at 3 a.m. Thursday morning, just thinking about going there the next day, and just it brought up a lot of stuff, a lot of
Sure.
stuff. And so one of the things that it brought up was I'm used to in the past I'm used to feeling like I need to prove myself to my family, to myself, to other people. And so I was struggling between sticking with this job because it was a full-time job. It paid well. Well, yeah, it paid well. and, and then fighting against my own instinct, knowing my strengths and weaknesses. I'm not a type A personality. I'm very creative. I literally was working like 8 or 9 to 7 or 8. So there were long days. I literally had zero time to have a thought of my own, unless it was like I have to pee or I have to eat lunch.
Right.
So it was
Super
super
focused.
stressful, and it was super reminding me of the job I just got out of that I had been in for 7 years. So I was being majorly emotionally triggered.
Yeah.
So I came to a crossroad and had to decide, okay, do I take this job because I'm going to continue on this path where I feel like I have to prove myself to people that I can do it, or even prove to myself that I'm not stupid, because I've dealt with in the past that with issues of feeling like I'm not smart.
Okay.
And I felt like, okay, well, if I stuck with this job and learned it and suffered through it, then I will know that I am smart. It's just the stupidest thing ever.
Wow.
So, so I really had to choose myself. I'm used to choosing, not disappointing people, not letting people down. I've had my priorities really out of whack for my whole life, pretty much.
Yeah.
But getting out of a really just abusive marriage and emotionally abusive and just situation, and being in a crux in my life where I'm just making better, healthier choices for myself, I made the right decision. And it was really hard. I mean, I cried for like an hour and a half because those two parts of me, the old part and the new part, were like warring against each other. So what is important and relevant to us? Well, relevant to me and important to me right now is being healthy and continuing on a path of health, and positioning myself into a place where I can use the talents and the gifts that God gave me. And I had a friend the other day that read some writing that I did, and she said the person that wrote this should not be sitting behind a desk,
Yeah.
for 40 hours a week doing paperwork and scanning stuff and shredding it. Like, this is just ridiculous. And I completely agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my answer.
And don't you think you mentioned briefly the situation you were in before, like the work situation, which was similar in that you were just expected to be there the whole time and just
Yeah.
work and work.
Every stalled moment was forcefully filled with work.
Right.
And it just was, and I was always chasing after work. I was always chasing after some goal someone set before me, and I was always running late, the white rabbit. And it just was stressful. It's just really stressful. So I got really triggered, and I was like, and in the midst of it, these 3 days that I was training, I was like, what the heck's wrong with me? I don't even know why I'm freaking out. And I mean, part of me was just glossing over it and thinking, well, this is just a really hard job. and there's a lot to learn. And the other thing I was fighting against was I'm a perfectionist. So when I learn something, whether it's something I'm required to learn or something that I want to learn, I want to be the best at it within a day.
Mhm. Sure.
So that's something else I'm learning to get over. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's why I like photography. It's
Awesome.
instant. I think
Yeah.
that's an issue that we all have, I think, these days, the instant gratification in a sense. But yeah.
And we can talk more about this on the next question, but what I was going to get to with you, Jen, before I move forward, is just to say that you set aside your creative things because you have lots of gifts and talents, and you set those things aside because of the way that the job was. There wasn't time to do all the other things that would have fed you in the ways that are important.
Yeah.
By your admission, by what you're saying is important to you.
And I thought, when I get off of work, I could do this creative stuff. I was getting off of work, and again, I know I was training, but I could look at the wife who had already been doing it a year and a half and see how fast she had to work while she was training me. And I was like, this is what it's going to be like. I had a really good gauge, of what the job was going to be like by watching her. And I would get off work and I was exhausted. I was just like, I don't want to do anything. I want to go home and eat dinner and crash.
Yeah.
That's no way to live.
Thanks, Jen. That was good. You really did dive right in. You said you were going to, and you just really did.
I did it. I rode the wave.
I'm so glad you're here. Yay.
Yeah, thank you.
Just real quick, hello to Hendrix and Ned Sellers, guys. Thanks for joining us. And Hendrix said he's right there with you when you were talking. He said he's right there with you and understanding. He also said, got to leave work at the office when you're off the clock. Absolutely, that's true. Journey's Wake, hello, welcome. Good to see you, buddy. Glad that you're here. All right. We'll go to Esteban. Esteban, you've been with us. You've heard kind of what the subject is, at least for the first question. So I'm going to ask you, what is important and relevant to you, sir?
Well, important to me would be, I would have to say first God, of course, and then kids, my kids, and also work because I got to support them.
Right.
Right now, I'm actually unemployed right now. I'm trying to find a job, so it's been a very rough road.
That's stressful. That's stressful especially when you have a family. I mean, as being a single person for me, it's even stressful in that case, but it's even more stressful if, just looking for a job and knowing that you have to provide for other people, you're responsible for other people. I can empathize, or at least sympathize. No, I was married, so yeah, I knew what that was like. Let's not forget that. Let's remember. So that certainly must be hard for you. So the things that you mentioned as being important, you wouldn't allow the job part, even though it's necessary. I'm not trying to speak for you. I'm going to frame it in the form of a question here at the end. So you wouldn't let the job stand in front of the other needs that you mentioned first, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't. If they told me I had to deny Christ or anything like that, I wouldn't deal with that.
What about your family?
Well, God provides, and that's why I leave it in His hands. So,
what I meant, let me rephrase. What I meant was, if your job was telling you that your family was coming in front of the job, for instance, like if you're missing your kids' recitals and games and stuff like that, like let's say your kid had a soccer game. I don't know what your kids' ages are, and that's okay, but if your kid had a soccer game and you're not normally scheduled for the weekends, but your boss said, Esteban, I need you to come in on Saturday. Would you be able to say, I'm sorry, I can't work on Saturday. I'm not scheduled for Saturday. And it's important that I spend time with my kids. What would you do?
I mean, it is important for me to be with my family.
Yeah.
And I would ask him politely about it if I can, like, maybe work a double shift maybe on Friday or something and try to get it done. But yeah, and if he said no, you know, I would be like, well, what other ways can I do this? You know, do I need to work during the week double time? You know, I would just ask him other questions to see what he would say about it. But mainly, my main focus would be, like I said, God, and then kids, and then work.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
Well, thank you. So part of my answer, this is kind of what we're getting at a little bit in many ways tonight, is it's so ingrained in society, the idea of how important work is. And theologically speaking, and this is a good point to make, it's so important, it's so ingrained in society, and that's why I think people get on the idea about works and how important works are to them. They want to stand on their own works rather than on what Christ has done. So having that in mind, in recognizing how important work is to people, I mean, of course we need work. Unless we're independently wealthy or we've inherited something from our parents or grandparents or whatever the case may be. Most people in this world have to have some kind of job. But the question is, how important is the job as compared to the other things? Because there are people certainly that put work first, to the detriment of their marriage and family. I've heard it so much growing up from my friends and my friends' wives, and complaining about their husband and all the fact that he is never home. And you see it even in Hollywood, in movies and stuff. You see this story unfold about how they go on a vacation or something, and the husband is on his phone because he's got calls from work. It breaks marriages up. It destroys families. It does all that. But doesn't seem to be a whole lot of shame when that happens. If you tell someone, yeah, I got divorced because I was at work, and it's almost like they say, oh, your wife didn't understand that you had to work. I mean, it's almost like it's more acceptable if you get a divorce and your wife leaves you because you're an alcoholic or something. That's understandable. But if a wife gets tired of the constant working and makes it a point to you, it's almost like there's not as much understanding as far as that goes from the world, because it seems like you should be able to you should put work first. People should understand that you have to work. Of course you have to work. So for my answer to the question, what's important to me, what's relevant to me, I grew up in a sort of situation where my dad, work was the most important thing to him. Now, I'm not saying that family wasn't important to him at all. It was. He did come to some things. When my growing up, he did show up to some things. He certainly showed up to some of my sister's things. It wasn't that he was totally absent from things, but I got the message growing up that where's your father? Oh, he's at work. I mean, I said that hundreds and hundreds of times. And, I grew up with the idea that, well, work must be more important than I am. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. Now, the truth is, I always had a roof over my head. I always had clothes on my back, and I always had food in the fridge. There were a couple times that they struggled, just like any young couple does that has children early. I mean, my parents got married at age 20, and they had me at 21 and my sister at 23, 24, somewhere in there. So they had kids pretty much right away. And so there's a few times when I felt like, in retrospect, as I look back on it, that I know that they were struggling financially. We had to live with my grandparents a couple of times and moved around a little bit when I was a kid. But even back then, work was important to my dad. So I grew up with kind of a different view of it. Work was important. I had jobs early on in my life. I had a paper route and I mowed lawns. I had my own little business by the time I was 16. When I got my vehicle, I had a trash route because I live in an area where some of the neighborhoods don't have the companies come in. They don't pay the companies to come in and take the garbage. So here we have what's called green boxes. I think a lot of other states have that as well. They don't have like sanitation companies. So people literally have to take their own garbage to these green boxes in different locations. Now, some larger neighborhoods have it, but a lot of them don't. But back then, it didn't exist in the little town that I was in. So I made good money doing that. I was taught a work ethic. I was taught, how important work was, obviously, and to show up on time and all that stuff. But my interest early on was relationships from the get go, going all the way back to my first memories. What was important to me was making friends and having fun and spending time with people. And that hasn't changed. I'm still like that. I mean, even after all these years later, I'm more likely, Esteban, to put the question to myself. Of course, I have to hold the job, keep the job. But if I'm scheduled Monday through Friday and I'm scheduled weekends off, and an employer says I need you to work on Saturday, if I've got something that I've already committed to in my family that I've already said yes to, I'm going to say no to the work. Bottom line. And that.
I was going to ask you, can I ask you this question then? So
Sure.
When it comes to that, though, they say, okay, well, if you decide that you don't want to come to work, what if the boss was rude to you and said, you know what, we're going to have to let you go then?
Yeah.
Would you just let it go then?
Absolutely. Okay. And part of you said the God was important to you. So part of the whole God idea is trusting him and believing that he will provide. And do you think that God would understand and know your heart when it comes to you're making a decision that the children that he's entrusted to you are more important than the job he's given you?
Oh, definitely. I mean,
but some people think the job and keeping the job is taking care of the children. So it gets kind of, weird.
But you also, if you look at it from this other perspective too, people might lose their job when that Mark of the Beast comes out. So it's like you're making a choice right then and there too. Do you want to keep your job and get that mark, or do you want to?
That's way more clear. You're right,
Yeah.
Esteban. That's way more clear. If you're having to make a choice, either you worship the beast or lose your job, then that makes the decision for you. If you're a believer, obviously.
Yeah.
Where in right now in this society, that's a great point, Esteban. So in this society, before not going to that end result, in the picture I'm painting of, if it's just someone asking you to work the weekend and you've already promised your kid that you're going to be at some recital or some soccer
game, yeah,
then to me, I'm saying that my value is going to be put in my children before the job. And if the employer is that much of a jerk where he doesn't understand that, he's asking me to work on Saturday, and I'm saying, I'm sorry, I can't this weekend. I've got a kid's soccer game. It doesn't matter to me what his value is. It matters to me what my value is. So if he's willing to let a good employee go because I'm not willing to work a day that I'm not scheduled to work, then I don't want that job.
Yeah. And, another thing too is a lot of times people are a little twisted and it's their way of testing your boundaries because they want someone to abuse.
What an excellent point.
So it's a slippery slope because when you slide on one thing, it's almost like they're like, I gotcha.
Yeah.
I know I can push him.
Yep.
And he'll give.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you brought that up. And a lot of times they're doing it. Yeah. They're doing exactly that.
Yeah.
So if they find out early on that they can push you, they can come to you and make it seem cheerful and, hey buddy, I just want, I know you don't normally work Saturdays, but I really need you to come in, blah, blah, blah. They're testing the boundaries to see. So if you give in that area early on, then a lot of times you set the precedent for the rest of the work or relationship.
Yeah. And not all the time. There are good people out there that would ask an employee, hey, could you help me out? And they're not evil and like trying to manipulate or try to abuse, but there are other people out there that would, want to test the waters to see if it's a potential situation where they could abuse it.
Exactly.
One thing I wanted to say real quick.
Sure.
So I had an interview with I thought I was going to get the job. It was with pest control. And this gentleman was testing me because he goes to a church that I used to go to. And, I told him, it's grace through faith and all that. Because he asked me about it. He asked me what what I believed in. So I told him the gospel. And I said, it's only through grace, through faith. And it's not of works, at least any man should boast. And and then I told him about my kids because he started asking me about my kids and everything. And he says, I don't know if I'm going to hire you because I think you might steal from me then because you're trusting on grace.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, whoa, what? I didn't know what, it kind of confused me. It hit me for like a whoa moment. So I don't know. It was weird. It was a completely different thing that I wasn't used to hearing from somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Threw me for a curveball. That's all I can say. But it's something close to what you guys were kind of talking about in a way, I guess you could say. Because he thought, because I was relying on grace, through God's grace to be saved, he thought I was going to go off and steal from him.
Did he think you were going to be
support
lazy?
my kids.
Maybe.
No, he straight up told me. He was like, I think you're going to try to steal something from me, like the money or something.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to say about that. I was like, no, I just, if I love God, why would I want to do that to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's odd.
Ned Sellers, real quick. Ned Sellers said, I once worked 7 12-hour days for 38 days straight. I took a day off and broke my arm. It was inhuman. Absolutely. There are people that schedule. I used to wait tables when I was going through school. I worked 2 jobs. I worked for my dad's business, which was trim carpentry, when I could, and I would fit classes in between. And then at night and weekends, I would work as a server in a restaurant. And I did restaurant work. Other than working for my dad, I worked restaurants more often probably than any other thing. And some restaurants, some employers are better than others, but especially in the restaurant business, they know that turnover is a big thing. So they don't care. They really don't care. In general, they don't care about the servers. So if they schedule you for a day, even though that when you got hired, see that this is the thing, they get you in during the interview process, and if you say to them, I don't work Sundays. If you say that, you make that stance right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't work Sundays. They say, oh, no problem. No, we won't schedule you Sundays.
Oh.
But then when you start working there, then you go look at the schedule and you see that you're scheduled on Sunday, and you go to them and say, when you hired me, I told you I don't work on Sundays. And they say, well, sometimes that's the way that it goes. So, if you can't work Sunday, then you need to find someone to cover your shift. That's the rules. This actually happened to me. And I said, nope, I'm not finding someone to cover my shift. I'm not. I told you I didn't work Sundays. You scheduled me Sundays.
You find somebody to cover my shift.
That's right. You find someone to cover my shift. And I actually, it was Chili's that I'd already worked at Chili's for, I think, 2 years. And the manager that did that wasn't the one that hired me, but it was all in my paperwork. All that stuff could be verified of what my schedule was and all that. And they let me go. They let me go because I refused to find someone to work my shift, and I didn't show up for my shift. So they considered it no call, no show. No call, no show. So when I did come back to my next scheduled day, that's how I found out I didn't have a job anymore. They didn't call me and say anything. They just waited for me not to show up for the Sunday shift, which I very clearly told them that I wasn't going to be there.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. Now later on in life, as work became more important and you have more bills and you're not 20 something years old anymore. Then later in my life, I felt like work was more important, and I caved more, because of that reason, the bills and all that. When I was younger, I didn't have any problem. I saw the value as being more important, and made the choices in that way. So, is that right? Is it wrong to stand up for the values that you hold dear? I think that you have to stand up for the values, that whatever the values are, because I think that, in my opinion, when you start to let go of some of those things, then you begin to slide down, to something, to being walked on, and to misplacing your values. Glenn, do you have a comment on this one before we move on, sir?
It's a pretty hard one, really, because at what point, or does anyone out there consider themselves a loser if they leave, or a loser if they stay? That's the bottom line. Where's all this lead? Now, from my point of view, I had a job for 13 years, and then I got another job, but became single and a single parent, and I had to make a choice with an autistic son. Do I try to continue to work, or 9 to 5, or do I have to basically give it up? And I said, well, the truth is I've got to give it up, because I need to be there when my son goes to school, pick him up after school. And I said, well, I've got to get my own business. I did. So I just did that. And the opportunities came, and I picked up on it. And I think at some point, when it doesn't feel right, and although you've got the money, at some point you've got to trust. You've got to trust in something that it's going to work out.
Yeah.
And just throw yourself out there and let it unfold. Because if you've got a lousy, rotten job and you feel like crap every day you go to work, it's going to rub off on your family. They're going to feel it just as much as you do, because you become a miserable git. You're cranky. You don't want to spend time doing anything. As I said, it just works so many negative ways, and I can't see too many positives.
Yeah.
So that's my answer to that one.
I love it. I love it.
Hey,
Thanks.
Cripps,
Yeah.
do you mind, because I've heard some of your stories of the soul-sucking job.
Uh-huh.
I was so floored by some of the stuff you shared. I seriously thought that kind of stuff only happened in movies like Office Space.
Oh, yeah.
Do you mind sharing some of those stories?
I do not. I worked a sales job for a place called Red Ventures, and it's still around. In fact, they've expanded then. After the recession, after we struggled for 2 years to find any kind of job, I took this job, even though I hate sales. I'd done sales jobs before and avoided like the plague, because I don't like pushing people into buying something. If they want to buy something, I think they should be able to buy it or not buy it. I don't want to try to convince someone into buying something. But this was people would call in, so it wasn't cold call sales. It was people calling in, and my particular area was DirecTV. I sold a couple other things, but I worked for a customer acquisition company called Red Ventures, and they lured you in. I don't know how far you want me to go with it, Jen, but they lured you in with the training process was wonderful, and they had the person that had you for 2 weeks and kind of telling you and preparing you for the job's going to be was delightful, and you could make so much money, and it's just all the positive stuff. And then you went through 2 weeks of nesting, which you're learning the ropes, and you're actually starting to take some calls. And so even that period of time was excellent. So you're there for a month before you actually go on the floor as a employee. And then you get into a team, and you have a team leader or a manager. And then you're required to be on the phone for 8 hours, or depending on your shift. Some people do 10-hour shifts. And you're on the phone the whole time. You have an hour lunch, but a lot of times if they're busy, if they have a high call volume, they'll buy your lunch, but you eat your lunch while you're on the phone. You might get 10 minutes to scarf down part of your sandwich, but you're pretty much still working. But the biggest thing, the problem I had, the issue I had the most problem with was that you had to ask permission to go to the restroom. You had to send a message through Messenger to your manager and say, I need to use the restroom. And a lot of times,
and what else did you have to tell them?
Oh, you have to tell them whether it's number 1 or number 2. You have to, so that
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. So they have to know how long to expect you to be gone. And if you're gone too long, they message you on your phone. You're not allowed to be on your phone, but when you go to the bathroom, you take your phone with you, because you can be on your phone, obviously. So they'll message you if you're taking too long and ask you what's going on. And that's because they only care about the money that they're making. They do not care about the individual. They literally called the people in sales grunts. They're called grunts. And then the few people that make it through that process that stay there after a period of time, if you're a good salesperson, they move you to middle management, and that's a much better life. You get trips and cruises and all kinds of stuff, and you don't have to do the grunt work anymore.
Oh, and tell them about, like, if someone's credit was bad, there was a point system that you...
Oh, yes. Okay, so the other part of it was that this is why it was so soul-sucking, was because they set you up to fail. They want the success from you, but they make it impossible for you to succeed, in that let's say you get 20 calls in a day. You might be able to sell 8 of them because they go by credit. So if a person calls in to get DirecTV, for instance, and they have bad credit, this particular company sets some kind of limit as to what they accept as far as bad credit is concerned, because they make more money if you pass credit. See how this works?
So they lower the bar.
So
right?
they lower the bar, and then you can't sell a bad credit call. So you have to just kind of get off the phone and get someone else on the line that you can actually sell. But your paycheck is affected because you didn't sell that call. You get it? You can't sell it because they have failed credit, but you're still charged. It goes against you as...
It's almost like credit score.
Yep.
Like people have to run your credit for you to get a car loan, but then it goes against your, or even to check your credit, it goes against your credit score. It's retarded.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. This world.
Jason, I also I know how that is. I used to work for a call center, and it sucks. I mean, I did pretty good. Don't get me wrong. They gave you like these little pins and stuff on your lanyards, and I had about 25 to 30 of those things on my lanyard. I was doing roadside assistance.
What's a lanyard?
The placard that we wear around your neck that...
like Boy Scouts?
No.
No.
Not at all.
Okay. I'm going to Google it real quick.
Mike W., welcome to the show.
Mike!
Hey, Jen. How you doing?
Good.
Good to talk to you again.
Yeah. Glad you came on.
Oh, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Steve also showed up. Steve, how are you doing, buddy? Doing any better?
Is he there?
Steve?
Hello.
Hello.
It's the delayed Steve.
Delayed.
Sorry.
Glad you're here, man.
Thank you.
Steve, before we start asking you questions, just if you get a chance, go ahead and read well, I can't think of the word. Why can't I think of the word? The introduction. Read the introduction on the...
I can't read at the
Oh, you
moment.
can't read.
No,
Okay.
I'm rolling. So you'll either have to read it to me or we'll just go.
Do you want to read the first question for him, Cripps?
Yeah, the first question is, we're talking about everything, but in particular about jobs. So to break the cycle, we need to ask ourselves what is important and relevant to us. And in particular, like we've been talking about in a job situation, if you're scheduled Monday through Friday and they ask you to work on Saturday and you've got a kid's soccer game to go to, for instance, would you tell them you can't work, or would you tell your kid that you can't show up because you have to work? We'll start there. What's important to you, Steve? Is family more important to you than your job, or do you generally think that a job is more important? What's of value to you in your life?
Is he still with us? Oh, yeah, he is.
I think both. It's a symbiotic relationship.
It should be, but is it always?
It depends on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know. If the job's not good for the family, that's a decision the family needs to make. One person just can't make that decision themselves.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
and at the end of the day, you also don't want to ruin a career or something like that by like just ditching a job because your family is more important than it. And that's true.
Yeah.
But, the job provides for the family's needs at the same time. So you just can't make rash decisions with that. That should be talked about, discussed, communicated, etc.
Uh-huh.
And
Sure.
everybody on the same page.
Sure. I told a story about where I worked a job where when I got hired, I explained to them what my schedule was, and they accepted my schedule. And Jen, by the way, the job that I'm talking about the bathroom, I did the same thing with them. And then it was fine all the way up until the first week I was there. And the first week I was scheduled correctly. Then the second week, they had me coming in on a Saturday, even though I was weekends off. At the time I was married, and I when I got hired, I explained that I needed weekends off because my wife at the time was off on weekends, and I wanted to make sure I spent time with her. And I stated very clearly that I cannot work weekends. I'll work whatever you want Monday through Friday, but I'm not working weekends. And they scheduled me on a Saturday. And same thing with the restaurant story that I told. Sunday. So Steve, I explained to them when I got hired that I couldn't work Sundays. I was making a stand that I don't work Sundays. They accepted that when they hired me. And then a new manager comes in, schedules me on a Sunday. And I said, I don't work Sundays. I'm not working Sunday. And they said, well, you need to find someone to cover your shift. I refused. And then I didn't show up, and I found out that I lost my job. Now, to me, that was them not respecting. It wasn't symbiotic. It was they wanted me to be there. They scheduled me even though I wasn't. It was very clear in my hiring what my schedule would be. And that happens all the time with employers. Yeah. They go against your schedule and
so it's like you need to have a lawyer make a contract.
Right.
So the employer can't do that.
Yep.
It's a shame.
What about you, Mike W.? What do you think?
About what's the most important in life?
What's important and relevant to you, sir?
Well, right now I was flirting with Jen, but so I guess that'd be the top of my list.
All right.
Wow. Okay.
But other than that, though, I would have to say Steve right now is the most important person to me.
Okay.
Steve?
That's meaningful. That's meaningful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. Steve's going through a lot right now, so just want to let him know that's important.
Yeah, and Steve, we mentioned that at the beginning of the show, and Glenn actually wrote the write up tonight, and just for the sake of you understanding the parts that relate to you, I will go back over it just a little bit. So it says, going with something iconic tonight, suggest you have a read and listen to the lyrics before we get started on tonight's show. It's one of those songs that gets in your head, and the song is "We Are the Champions" by Queen. Couldn't resist this part of the lyrics. For you, Steve, and I need to go on and on and on. We love you, buddy. Our adventure is awakening, specifically the words creativity, enthusiasm, willingness, and motivation, or anything else considered part of the equation. Time after time, I've done my sentence, but committed no crime. Exactly. Think about it. How many of us have inadvertently labeled ourselves as losers, and we don't even realize it? And then goes on a little bit more, just to save going over it all again. I'll get to the next part where you're mentioned, Steve. Okay. I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Then toward the bottom, Steve, this one's for you. Seriously, if a person of integrity feels the need to apologize for what they wholeheartedly believe, where does that leave the rest of us? Is awakening the very instant one realizes that certain people need to be left behind and others embraced? Yourself, for instance. If you choose to submit yourself to the expectations of others, you subject yourself to a life of insecurity, and that's no pleasure cruise, more like the Titanic going down. We are the champions, my friend. All you need to do is believe. So we want you to know, at least on TSL, brother, that regardless of other people that out there, that say that they understand grace, but they don't seem to show that grace when it comes to being annoyed or irritated by someone else. There are people that do show grace, true grace, and will accept you, not only accept you, but embrace you. Whether you're going through something or not is beside the point. You are going through something. So that's when you find out who your real friends are. You find out the people that support you and not support you. And I've been through this many times, and having people say that they have my back, but when it comes to something, if they're annoyed by what I'm going through, then I've unfortunately seen many times that people are very willing to pay lip service and say that they're friends and that they're willing to be there for you. But when it comes down to it, they're not. It's annoying. It's annoying to me. It's annoying to me to see it. So,
yeah, I hear you. And with what I'm going through, I just want to say thank you to you guys for your support, whether you know what's going on or not. Thank you to everybody that has commented on the video that I put out today asking for prayer. Y'all really touched me and blessed me by that and have really ministered to me through that. It has meant so much to me. Everybody's comments and prayer and words of encouragement and scripture verses that they put in their comments to encourage. I've just been blown away. Thank you guys so much
you're
all of that. And especially for the close friends that have been in touch with me through what I'm going and know what's going on and are, more informed and praying for me. I'm just so thankful. So thank you guys. And I'm grateful that no matter what, I have Jesus through this.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you, Steve. I'm laughing at Hendrix.
Yeah, she's not.
Okay. I know.
Sorry, I'm so
I know.
sorry.
It's okay. You laughed like right when it sounded like I might have been done.
Yeah.
And then I kept going and you laughed. I'm like, that's
Oh,
hilarious.
No.
And, it's still funny.
That was only like 20 seconds. You're good.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve, since you can't read it. Hendrik said, "I like touching Steve. I'm glad he liked it too." And then he did.
Oh, thank you.
So there you go, Steve.
I needed some comedy.
I thought you might. So when things are going tough, it's certainly good to have some people that support you and that are able to make you laugh a little bit. And it doesn't mean that it takes completely away from whatever the situation is, but knowing that people are there is incredibly comfortable and supportive, obviously. And you do have people that do genuinely care. And I hurt for anyone that doesn't have that anyone out there listening that doesn't feel like they have anyone to be there for them when they go through something. I just pray that you have people, that you find people in your life and choose people to be around you. This is a big deal, and choosing people or in your circle of friends or family members that you can honestly trust and that you can know that are going to be there for you when you need it. Now, Steve, this is totally up to you. Now, do you feel like you want to share what's going on or anything? I mean, I know that's not necessarily part of the topic, and if you don't want to, I certainly respect that. But we didn't go into specifics about your situation.
No, let's just say what would be the word? Family issues.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. That's good enough. All right, so we'll get back around to the topic. So the next part of it, did I ask everyone the first question? Did everyone get a chance to answer? Mike, did you answer? I think so. What's important and relevant to you? You did answer.
Yeah, I definitely answered that one.
Okay, so the next part of it, we are talking about jobs. So think of that job we don't like. Is it a valid reason to leave a job because there's no enthusiasm or opportunity to be creative? Let's start with that. And we'll ask you, Mike, is it valid reason to leave a job because there's no enthusiasm or opportunity to be creative?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because well, at the end of the day, really, you got there's a difference between surviving and living,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
wow. Yeah. Talk about that, Mike.
Well, if you're doing a job, well, look at it this way: if you're whenever you're at work, true, you're surviving, and your job pays the bills and all that sort of thing. Hopefully,
Right. Right.
But when you do a job, though, you figure you're going to be spending like 40 plus hours a week doing it. So you're going to end up spending more time with your work than you do with the people that you love, unless you work with someone you love, which would be cool, right?
That
But
would
so if you figure if you're doing all that and it's like soul killing, then if you multiply how much time you spend throughout what's going to be the rest of your life into retirement, et cetera,
Yeah.
right? Then it just seems like a waste to me, So for me, on the other hand, I'd rather live for the moment. You know what I'm saying? Like I'd rather just take a chance, and I guess I'm kind of a gambler that way. But I'd rather live a life might be shorter, but way more rewarding than doling away at some soul killing job. That's why I look at it.
Oh, that's a great point, because the job I was talking about, I stayed at a year, and the only reason I stayed at that job for a year is because I felt like I had to provide. And after going through 2 years of the recession and not being able to find even a decent job of any kind, I stayed at it and stayed at it and stayed at it, even though every day that I went, this job was so bad. I literally had to listen to. I made a mixed CD for myself, and had to listen to that every day on the way to work to pep myself up to get ready for the soul sucking.
Right. Exactly.
And then on the days that I did get my full guaranteed 1 hour lunch, I would go out in my car and listen to Christian radio, and just to have anything that would fill my spirit enough to handle the second part of my day.
Right. And that's all you're doing.
That's all I'm doing.
Yep. And look at it this way, like during all that time, you're spending the majority of your life soul killing. And maybe if you're lucky, you get a Saturday to do something and a Sunday to get ready for the whole thing all over again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I would go home. And then, of course, my ex-wife, she had her own problems and needs. And I would do my best to spend time with her, and then come to find out that the time I spent with her she didn't consider quality time. She wanted me to take her out places and go out to eat and things like that. That was quality time. But sitting next to her and making a meal together and watching TV or having discussions or whatever, and spending time in the same room wasn't quality time. And that was frustrating to realize. I mean,
okay, go ahead. I got something I want to add to that when you're done. Jason.
Sure. No, I'm just saying it was frustrating for me to have the soul sucking job and then come home to a situation where that was the job that I was at when I realized that she wasn't staying in the marriage. That was the job.
I guess it's common though. I think is like what happens is if you're the guy, you're doing this job you hate, you're working, killing yourself. Probably why we live shorter lifespans, right? Mm-hmm. And then you think you're doing right for the family, and then you get home, and you're exhausted, so you have no more emotional.
Yep.
You're not there for them because you're spent, right?
Yeah.
And then so you can't really fulfill that anyway most of the time. It depends on the person. Some people they work it out somehow. But it can actually ironically hurt the relationship too, I think.
Yeah. And it was part of it. That wasn't the reason that she left, obviously. But she tried to use it, though. She tried to use it in saying that, that I was working all the time, and that when I came home, it took me a while when I would get home to get out of the idea of that my soul wasn't being sucked anymore.
Well, I got another one. How about the guy that's in the military or something? And so he's off like fighting in war or something, and then trying to provide for the family and comes back and then not as, PSD or whatever, or
PTSD.
or less, and then it doesn't work out because things change. It depends on the person. Not everything's the same, but I'm just saying, or if you're away for a long time, I don't know. All that stuff could take a toll.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for the whole situation in that situation because
yeah.
the guy's just trying to do his thing. He's just like, I'm doing my responsibility and this, that, and everything. And sometimes it's an unrewarding end of all that.
Yeah.
Where, it is what it is. It's not there's two sides to every coin.
Yep. I agree. That's a good point, Mike. Thank you so much, buddy.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Esteban, do you have a comment on this one?
Well, when you, I was trying to think like right now. What was the question? One more time. I'm trying
Is
to
it
remember.
a valid? No problem. Is it a valid reason to leave a job because there's no enthusiasm or opportunity to be creative?
Oh yeah. I used to work at a call center, like I said, and yeah, I did great at the job. But I didn't feel. I don't know. It didn't feel right.
Right.
Because I had to put on this fake persona when I was on the phone to help the person out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this is not being genuine. Like they taught me in the classes, like, hey, you need to fake a smile even though you're not next to that person or right in front of that person.
Yeah, read it like you're smiling. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do that anymore. I really, really can't do that. I mean, this person's crying on the phone and I have to hear them constantly crying, say that they're lost.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm trying. And it broke me to the point where I was like, I got to leave.
Yeah.
I told my manager that, and he was like, no, she was like, it's okay. We understand.
Yeah.
So, but she's like,
nice.
yeah, she was nice about it, but she's like, whenever you want to come back. And I was like, I don't know if I will be able to come back.
Yeah, I understand.
It's like scarred the heck out of me.
Sure. Oh, thanks, Esteban. Appreciate that. Jen?
Valid reason to leave a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like I shared earlier, it's really difficult because for 13 years, and even prior to that, I was taught just how I just needed to prove things. And that work was the most important thing more than relationships, which is not my heart at all. Like it's just the actual opposite. So yeah, now that I'm out of a really bad situation, I'm like, okay, yeah, we need to do this differently.
Yeah. You have a second chance really to decide in choosing a job and knowing that what you'd been through for all that period of time, to choose something that gives you a little bit more opportunity to be creative and that's something you're more enthusiastic about.
And honestly, it's not just about me like living some dream.
Right.
I really do believe God has gifted me with things that he wants me to use to glorify him. And it just, and I'm sure a lot of people struggle with this. It's really difficult for me to feel like I'm squandering those things away, not because I want to, but I feel like there's some need to.
Yeah.
Because again, that's just highlighting my lack of faith in the fact that he's going to provide a way to actually use those things that he's instilled in me, that he knows that I have a passion to use. So yeah.
Yeah.
What are those things? What is your passion, Jen?
Oh man, we don't have enough time.
Give me a clue. Come on, that's cheating. You got to tell me something.
Art, all kinds of art, writing and art.
Writing too?
Writing. I really want to write and illustrate children's books. That's like my biggest dream.
There you go.
So it's in the works.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. You should like write a book about Mr. Monocle Man, right?
It would be interesting at least, Mike.
It'd be a bestseller, right?
It'd be a bestseller. Be on the New York Times bestseller list.
Right, very high up in the peanut community.
That's the peanut community would just embrace you.
Nuts would love it. I mean, right?
Steve, is it a valid reason to leave a job because there's no enthusiasm or opportunity to be creative?
Steve?
Steve. You unmuted.
No.
Explain, sir.
Explain. A bird in the hand is better than two in the bush.
Okay. Okay.
More
So
explaining, sir.
Okay. In other words, if you have a job, leaving the job because it's not exciting or creative doesn't leave you with a job that provides for food, a roof, clothing, all of the necessities of life. And sometimes you need a job that's a job that will provide if it, that whole like follow your dreams is great, but that's secondary to just living.
interesting. Okay.
Like, I have a job I kind of enjoy. Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely days it royally stinks.
Yeah.
But yet, I'm able to do my passion while I do my job.
Right. Right.
Not everybody can do that,
That's true.
but at the end of the day, like, if I didn't have this, I still need a job. I still need food.
Uh-huh.
I still need clothing. I still need a place to stay.
Sure. Sure.
So, you don't want, that's what that whole saying is about. A bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. Like, a job that provides, that you have in hand.
Uh-huh.
You before you quit, you have another job offer given to you to go there.
See, now I said it, you weren't here for this, Steve, but I said that we live in a society. You're making my point for me, Steve. So I appreciate that. And I'm not singling you out. I'm saying that we live in a society where work is considered the most important thing above family and above everything else. And certainly by the companies that do the hiring. They want you to set aside. In fact, how long have women been fighting to have childcare provided by the people that they work for? I mean, for a long time, women weren't even respected in the workplace. And then when they were part of the workplace, then what if they have children then? And then so some companies won't hire a woman if she ever plans to have a child. So they're
discrimination.
Sorry?
I said discrimination.
It is discrimination. It is absolutely discrimination, and it goes across many, many, many different areas where the discrimination is happening. But work is considered number one, and then everything else after that. So I'm not saying your answer is wrong. I'm just saying that it's indicative of a lot of the attitudes of people where work is considered the most important over the needs of the family or even the needs of the individual. But this specifically, Steve, is enthusiasm and opportunity. And I'm not, the question I don't think is suggesting that you don't have something to go to. I think the idea is if you're at a soul-sucking job, there's no enthusiasm, there's no opportunity to be creative. Does it make sense for you to find something else where those things are a little bit more important? And I certainly understand in your job, you actually have the perfect job to be able to do shows and be able to do more things. So you're able to be creative while you're working. But a lot of people, as you said, Steve, don't have that chance. So if they're in a place where they're not able to do any of that, they're not able to have some of the things that maybe it's not important to them. There are some people that just want to work. That's it. Right, Jen?
Right.
People that just want to work. Their whole life is about work, and that's all.
Yeah.
And, if you're like that, then more power to you. We have Matthias with us. Matthias.
I was just going to add on that. Like, I'm not saying don't do that, but also there's also like this idea of just screw that job. I can't be creative, so I'm just going to quit and then find something else. Like, that's what
That's exactly what I did this past week, Steve.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's exactly what Jen did, Steve.
Oh.
I'm a rebel.
Yeah.
Right. Living on the edge.
She's
I'm saying that's the best course of action. you know.
Sure.
You have to weigh all these things, but the best idea is to, I think knowing a little bit of your situation, I think I could understand why you might be like, I'm done doing that.
Yeah, and I don't have kids, and I do still own a business that's creating money. So I have, I still have access to
Boom.
finances.
Right.
So
See,
I mean,
that's totally different than like if you were to walk away from a job and have no paycheck.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
weak.
Especially if you have a
That's
family,
what
that's like, yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Matthias, welcome to the show, my friend. Matthias, as I did say at the beginning that you had said you'd be running a little bit late, so welcome.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
sir.
then when I got here, the link wouldn't work.
Oh, that's
Oh man.
How'd you get in?
Steve added me somehow.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks, Steve. Thanks for adding Matthias in. Great.
But is it a valid reason? It's a valid reason to be looking for another job for sure.
Yeah.
But I would say that God's the one who gives us our provision. So really, if you get in prayer with him and he doesn't make it clear to you to stay or go, then just go with the flow. But if he makes it clear one way or the other, I would say you go with what God says. So if he has a job that is perfect for your talents and gives you the ability to be productive and glorifying him, then that's probably the best way to go. But if you can't, if you're being held back, or if you're being unable to use the talents God's given you, or even the opportunities to share his word, and you see other ways that you can work and do those things, well, maybe he's showing you to shift gears. But
absolutely,
really, I would just say that if you're not happy doing what you're doing, that would be a good reason to start looking for something else.
Perfect. The only other question you didn't answer yet, and everyone else did, Matthias, is the first one we asked, which is what is important and relevant to you in your life, like work, family, God, whatever. I mean, what's most important? What do you value most in life?
Jesus.
Yeah.
But in a practical sense, which the world could see, I would say that between work, ministry, and family, I kind of consider them all the same.
Oh, okay. So you share the level of value between the three things?
Right, because without the work, it can't prop up the family or the ministry. Without the ministry, it can't prop up the family or work. And without family, I can't do ministry or work. So it's like all three of them are so closely connected that I do praise God that the work is shifting gears to where it actually can fall into that place. Because I was working in a place where I wasn't able to share the gospel with people because I had a boss who thought it was a waste of time, and
exactly,
I was just doing things that was just me and nobody else all day long. So and doing the best all to the glory of God didn't really mean much to my boss, who's like, "Oh, great! I got this great worker. I don't have to pay him a certain much."
Absolutely.
So wouldn't use it. It wasn't even a witness for him. So I was in a position to where changing gears was probably productive.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you for your answer, Matthias. I appreciate it. Glenn, you want to comment on this one?
Galenzo.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. Sorry. Yeah, simple answer. If any job compromises the things I consider important, I'm out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thanks.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this: in Australia, then, is it like here in the United States? I don't want to assume, but here I was explaining at the beginning of the show that in America, it seems it just is pervasive in society where work is the most important thing over everything else. Is it like that in your country?
I think that's one is too difficult to generalise.
Okay.
I think it comes down to individuals and attitudes, and what, as the questions have really asked, is what's important, what's relevant.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, I couldn't give you anything definitive on that one. That's for sure.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so the next two questions go together. Are we a loser if we stay? Are we a loser if we leave? And I guess it doesn't have to be just jobs. It's just any situation where your values aren't being upheld. Is it? Are you a loser if we stay? Are we a loser if we leave? And we'll start with Mike on that. Mike.
Okay. Is if we're a loser if we stay? I think it depends on the situation. Really.
Sure.
You know. But since what kind of want to add to that though is a little off topic here, but talk about work and stuff you do. Not really work, but more of a hobby or something. Is I've been writing. Jen mentioned she does writing. Well, I've been doing a little writing too, where I've been writing scripts for my channel, right?
Awesome.
And I was hoping maybe you could come on there and I could tell people that it was John Goodman.
Oh yeah, you sent me an email. I don't
Right.
think I ever answered your email.
Right, and that's the other thing I want to do. I want to have you come on, right? So I could pretend like it's a Illuminati interview with John Goodman, right? Would that be cool, Jen?
Sure.
I'll be like, but I was going to call you instead of John Goodman, you'd be like Jack Woodman, right? Because
and I just talk normally like myself. You mean?
Right, exactly. I'll say I'm changing the name to protect the right, and then of course Wood, Wood. So I thought it'd be funny to Jack Woodman. So is that something you're inclined to do?
Sure,
Jason. Right on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Does that sound cool to you?
That's
right?
cool. I think you picked the perfect guy.
Oh,
he's got a cool voice.
Thank you.
Right. He's got the awesome baritone John Goodman thing going on. All right.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you.
Mike Elder asked a question in the chat that I feel like I need to address. True Story Live, are you talking biblical values or today's values? I'm not sure, Mike, that how often you listen to the show. It's not necessarily just a Bible show. We often talk about many different topics, and this has been this way since the beginning. We like to discuss today's values in life as they relate to biblical values, and the idea of the gospel is always there. And we have people on the panel, obviously, that are believers, and the ideas of that are interwoven into everything that we talk about, every topic that we discuss. And oftentimes, Glenn, even though he's not a quote unquote believer, he also weaves in the topics biblical ideas, or at least questions that he asks as part of the show as well. So if you're frustrated that we're not just talking about the Bible or God the whole time, I do apologize. You're more than welcome to continue to listen and be involved in the chat, and you can definitely get fellowship in there as well from the people that are in there. But we're not necessarily just talking about the Bible the whole time. So again, apologize if that's startling to you or irritating or annoying in any way. But I wanted to address that real quick. Okay. Let's see what else. Oh yeah. Are we a loser if we leave? Are we a loser if we stay? Steve?
Are we a loser if we stay?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Are you a loser if you leave, Steve? That rhymes.
No. I mean, make good decisions.
Yeah.
You know, if staying is a good decision, do that. If leaving is a good decision, do that. You know, look at all the options. Like, if you have a job that you have, let's just say hypothetically, you have a job that's $15 an hour and you have no creativity and all of that, but it provides you a stable income and uh, everything that you need for life. You're able to save. You're able, let's just say, just for one person.
Mm-hmm.
That's a decent job for one person, no family,
Right.
especially.
Right.
Even for some families, that might be a good job. But and you're looking for a job because you want that creativity, you want that spark, or you feel like you're actually used for your talents and things like that. I get looking for it, but if you find a job that's only $8 an hour and
Yeah.
you can do that, but that means you're going to really shortchange your family, or you won't even be able to make your bills. You'll have to, I mean, you have to look at all of it, and at the end of the day, can you find ways to, like, I think a lot of it is are we actually looking for ways in the job we're in to be creative?
Uh-huh.
Like, I've been doing this job a long time, and it wasn't until the last, couple years that I began to start being creative out of partly desperation to find other brothers and sisters, especially brothers
Mm-hmm.
in Christ, to have friends, to have fellowship, to have real relationship with, because I had nobody as
Absolutely.
far as friends was concerned. And so, like, it got to a point of push came to shove, and I actually, started reaching out. And so I found a way to make what I have work for me,
Yeah.
instead of being like, this job I can't just do what I want to do with this job, blah, blah, blah. I mean, like, is that necessarily the case? So I look at it from my particular point of view with my job, that I could have had that attitude, or I could have had the idea of, let me see if I can find ways. Let me talk to my boss. Let me, is there something I can do to make this, more enjoyable? Am I allowed to have music? Am I, whatever it is? But at the end of
Sure.
the day, you know, you have to weigh all those things and then decide. And who says you have to use your creative talents on the job?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you, if you had, there's one thing with a regular job, $15 now, let's say 40 hours a week. Most people that have a 40-hour week job waste around 20 hours a week or more,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes near to a full-time job watching TV.
Sure.
So why not put the TV down and start doing something creative on the side while you work a job that provides for your needs, if you can't find a job that you can be creative in that will supply your needs?
Mm-hmm. Sure. That's a good point. Excellent. Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Esteban?
I would have to say it really depends on the eye of the beholder.
Okay.
Like, the boss could end up being like, well, you're giving up this big old opportunity. So he, in his eyes, you may end up being a loser in his eyes. You know what I'm saying? If you leave. But personally, I don't think there's any loser either way. Uh, One thing that always pops in my head is lean not on your own understanding, but lean on the understanding of God. So, in all things, you shouldn't just lean on your own human understanding, but lean on the understanding of what God wants. And if
Absolutely.
God's telling you, don't do that, don't, this job isn't for you, then lean on him and he will guide you through what he wants you to do in life.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
That's just that's my answer.
Okay, thanks. Glenn said in chat, so I'll go to him next. Glenn said maybe having a depressing job depresses the will to be creative at home. Glenn, you want to say more about that? Yeah.
Well, I do. I think if I know, having experienced a lousy, depressing job, that the people are rubbish, horrible, self-focused, I'd come home and want to put my head through a wall. I'm certainly not going to sit there and want to paint a Da Vinci.
Right, no doubt.
Because I feel like crap.
Yeah.
And I know I've got to get up the next morning and do the same thing all over again. No way.
Yeah.
I'm finished with that stuff. No.
Yeah, I hear you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Jen?
I think it depends. And this is a question that I've wondered about a lot of different topics, but this is a really good one to kind of pose it.
Okay.
Is God interested in the kind of job we have, or is he just interested in the fact that we're providing for our family? I think he blesses the fact that people step out and want to provide and are doing what we're responsible for doing, especially with families.
Right.
But if there is a chance that God has a specific path for me that's going to bless me and glorify him, I think he can bless me and glorify him in any situation. But if there's a specific path that he wants me to go on and it's his perfect will, I don't want to miss out on that. So it's like, where's the balance?
That's
And really and truly, honestly, this boils down to having a personal relationship with God and having just being in prayer and being in communication with him, so that you're not solely not focused, but just reliant on yourself to figure it out. And I know there are times that I have been reliant on myself and have made decisions that maybe weren't his perfect will, and he still worked through it. He's God. He can do that. He can do anything. But then I think, what could I have potentially been missing out on by not totally yielding to him?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it definitely depends. And the other thing about this was the question about, are we a loser if we stay or a loser if we leave? Was that correct?
Yeah.
I think in my particular situation, because of my past and my baggage and all this other stuff that I've been dealing with the last couple of years, I think I was a winner for leaving because, and it's because of all the stuff that was trudged up with even the choice being on the table. Do I stay or do I leave? God just completely showed up and brought up a lot of stuff, emotional things and things that he and I needed to look at, and he needed to address and me to heal. I honestly believe that even though I was there for 3 days, he used it.
Yeah.
And he knows I've spent the last 13 years in a job that was soul sucking.
Yeah.
It completely was killing me from the inside out. It was squelching any connection or fellowship with family and friends and him. And it just was insane. And so this particular job that I chose, I didn't realize what I was getting into. It was a shocker. But an opportunity arose for me to either continue what I was doing, because what I was doing before was I was trying to prove to the people around me, prove to myself, maybe even prove to God that I could stick it out. I could suffer through it because I have to work.
Yeah.
But it was destroying me, and he knew that, and he saw it. And I don't believe that's what he has for me. I believe this is a different season, and he's going to provide something that's going to be a part of my healing, not my destruction. So
perfect. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate that. Matthias?
The answer would be no.
No. You're not a loser if you go or stay. Right. You're just not a loser either way, are you, Matthias?
You're a winner. We're all winners of God.
The only way that you're a loser is if if it kills you and you don't go to heaven.
Okay.
Because if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
Right. That's what they say.
And and that's what they do say. But I will agree with him from experience.
Oh, sure.
But if you're coming from a believer's perspective, if you're just following how God is leading you, whether it's a valley and feels detrimental and you don't see the positive in it, but God's clearly saying he needs you to stay there. Well, just because you can't see how God's working through it doesn't mean that he's not.
That's true. Yeah.
And I would say that he is, if he's made it clear to you to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not a loser if he tells you to stay and you stay, and you're not a loser if he tells you to go and you go.
There you go.
So
Great point.
The answer is just no. As long as you're walking in sync with Father, you're doing good. You're a winner.
Perfect. Thanks. And I'm going to ask the next question to you, Matthias, first. You had to wait so long to answer. So the next question is it the money that counts or our peace of mind? Where's the balance? I'll combine those two questions. Is it the money that counts or our peace of mind? Where's the balance?
Well, it's the love of money that's the root of all evil.
Yeah.
But there is a security that comes with, or perceived security that comes with money.
I like the correction you just made, by the way.
Right, because in a day's time, the value of what you have in your bank or your wallet could be down to burnable.
Yeah.
The value of any fiat currency is just what the society believes it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so the perceived stability could vanish in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But the peace of mind, knowing that you don't even need that value because God is the one who provides, even if it were.
Yeah.
Like back in Russia, bring along or a wheelbarrow full of money and you might be able to get a loaf of bread. It's actually, you get more out of it if you burn it for the warmth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, gosh, that's cool.
So that could happen. And actually, the way that they've been messing with the money, the currencies across the different international countries, we're not too far from waking up one morning and having that be our reality. So
I agree.
I say the peace of mind, but that comes with knowing that your provisions that you need inside this world come directly from your Father who's outside of it.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, Matthias. Appreciate your answer. Steve? Is it the money that counts or our peace of mind? Where's the balance? Steve-O.
Sorry. I think honestly, I thought Matthias's answer was great.
I did too. It was good.
I thought that was like, if I could like, yeah, like
you
that's
can say
what
ditto.
I say.
You can say ditto. It's okay.
Yeah, I was looking for that word. I just couldn't remember it. Like my brain is a little frazzled right now.
I understand.
But yeah, like, contentment.
Yeah.
Is great gain, as the scripture says.
Yeah.
What did Paul say? I've learned to be rich. I've learned to be poor, and all things to be content.
Yeah, beautiful. And if you can have that, if you can maintain that attitude by being connected to the divine and keeping your eyes on Christ, and abide,
exactly. Abide.
Exactly. Mike Elder says, peace of mind, money follows like a gift. I love that. That's good, Mike. I appreciate your comment. Mike W.
Well, I like what Jen said about yielding because it's important to, put God first.
Mm-hmm.
But on the subject, on the whole, though, it kind of makes me think of the agricultural revolution, because before that time, when we were all like hunter gatherers or whatnot, then money didn't even exist. So we wouldn't be having this discussion, because we'd like hunt for a little while, or grab some berries or whatever, and we'd be set for the rest of the day. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Mike, we were never hunter gatherers, buddy. You're like,
you're right.
If you believe the biblical narrative, then
Right.
the hunter gatherers thing was something created by the people that believe evolution. I mean,
no, wait, but didn't people hunt and gather?
Yeah,
well, as general hunters gatherers, but when you use the term hunter gatherer, you're referring to a period of time, Neanderthals and stuff like that, of how society started based on the world's interpretation based on evolution.
Well, I'm not really based on evolution. I'm just thinking like,
I know, it's just the first thing
like how like farming and all that started the Fertile Crescent, right?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So like what according to that, before that time, there was no need for money, because everyone just there was no need for special jobs either.
Bartering.
Everyone did
bartering system.
Bartering, or at least everyone did the same thing. Like everyone knew how to make a basket, or whatever the thing was. So it was probably a lot easier. You didn't work for 8 or 10 hours a day. You just go kill the deer or something, and you're good to go. Right?
Yeah, come feed your family and share it with your neighbor if you wanted.
Right, exactly. So then you had the rest of your time for whatever. That's the way it should be. Where there's less time working than living. I think I think
less time working, more painting on walls.
Yeah, actually, it'd be way cooler. That's probably maybe that's what he got intended originally. It was just that we did what we had to do to eat or whatever, but then spend the rest of the time being more creative. But anyway, so what happened was when they started farming and all that, then that led to everything else, like wars, fighting over land, and people had jobs because the guy who owned the land was the one who owned it, so that everyone would have work for. The master, exactly. That's
landlord.
Everything else comes from that, including money, but other stuff, right? Because like writing and all that is because you have to keep tabs of the money of how many apples or whatever were doled out, or cattle or whatever the thing is. Right. So I guess so going back to history, I'm going to go back in time, and then we're going to go forward in time, because I have another thought about that. Okay. So if you go back to the agricultural revolution, before that time, none of this stuff exists. This is all the result of civilization and cities and money and all that stuff that puts us in that false paradigm where I think to some extent the whole system is a beast system. And we're all set up. It's all like a part of a plan that's going to lead to the mark of the beast and all that. So all these jobs we do, a lot of them are just meaningless stuff that that are like schools. You go through I don't know what it is, 12 years or whatever it is altogether, from kindergarten to college or whatever the number adds up to, probably more than that. But you spend all this time learning all these useless facts, and you're pre-programmed to do all these things. And then once you get all the way through it, you get stuck in an office somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. What a great point. Absolutely, yeah.
Right. So
stuck in an office.
Exactly. So the whole thing is you're really just being slaves. So how you do win in that, right? Yeah. And then at the end of the day, what's going to happen is AI is going to take over everything, more than likely, I think. And that's why they're putting that pre-program about universal income, because what's going to happen, I think, is that everyone's going to be biometrically and facial recognition logged into some database, right? Yeah. And that's when this whole conversation will be irrelevant there, because what's going to happen is there will be no more need for work, because they'll have they already have robots that do surgery, so they can do the white collar job. So why can't they do the blue collar job? So we're going to become obsolete. And so they're going to say, well, you know what? If you no longer want to be obsolete, you got to take this chip, and then you get superhuman robot powers or something. And then then here's your universal income. So
universal income. Yeah, they may even forgive all your debt. They're going to make it. They're going to sweeten the deal for you. It's not going to be just like, hey, this is people are going to want to do it. It's going to be a deal in some way.
I think we're like cattle, though. Like for some of the cattle, they're going to want to follow that carrot.
Exactly.
Right. And then for the stragglers, they're going to be like, well, it's the universal income, or, you don't live or something.
That's correct.
What are you going to do? Are you going to work for somewhere? There's no work. You know, so So I don't know. I'm not sure if that's helpful.
You need to do a show on your channel about this, and I'll come on as a guest because I could talk more about it. But
more about universal income.
The whole thing, the whole idea of the B system, all the stuff that you mentioned.
Oh, okay. Maybe I can find a way to fit that in, because I was thinking about doing a script about because Mark mentioned this. He said I should do a script about the Tower of Babel. Well, it's like, oh wow, that sounds awesome, because it talks about Nimrod, right? Yeah. And then that could go into like the Antichrist or something. I think a lot of people think that like the Antichrist is going to be Nimrod reborn. I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I'll work on that then. So when you come on and for me and can you also do an interview beforehand where I pretend that you're John Goodman?
Yeah.
Because I think that'd be hilarious. Yeah. Like a prank, like War of the World style with Orson Welles or whatever.
That was great. Yeah, the War of the Worlds, where people killed themselves because they didn't catch the beginning of the broadcast where they said it was a play.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. I love it. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, no worries.
Esteban, thank you for being so patient, my friend. We've got a bigger panel than usual, so I appreciate everyone being patient while we get to everyone.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, I have to give an experience that I was taught. When I was working as a security officer, I was only getting maybe about 1 day a week to work, and that was only 8 hours a week. I wasn't humbling myself at the time, so what happened was I was like, no, I need to find a job that's going to pay me more. So in doing that, yes, I did find a job that would pay me more, and I ended up losing that job because the boss was just wanting it his way all the time. So like, even if I had something going on a Saturday, he wouldn't budge.
Okay.
And I told him, because he told me I had weekends off, but he's like, if I need this done on a Saturday, you have to come into work. And I'm like, well, I have kids.
Wow. Yeah.
So I didn't budge for him, and he got mad and he fired me. So, but I look back at it now and I go, I should have just kept the 8 hours that I had as a security officer. So I see it more as, instead of being like greedy, be more humble and pray about it with God, and God will never steer you wrong.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Esteban. Jen?
Which question are we on?
Is it money that counts or our peace of mind? Where's the balance?
The balance is in a relationship with Jesus.
Woohoo! There you go.
Seriously. Because I think situations are always changing. It just depends on your situation, and it depends on where God wants you to go. And it's not cookie cutter.
No.
For each person and each family, it's going to be different. You know what I mean? Like, so that's my answer.
Okay. Thanks, Jen. Glenn?
If I'd focused on money, I wouldn't have seen what I've seen, and I wouldn't be poor now either. But at the end of the day, having no money is a little price to pay for what I've done. So,
yeah, because and yeah, there you go. So you're traveling and being able to see different places, and not being tied down, not staying in one area. All the people that you've met, et cetera, the whole thing.
Absolutely, I wouldn't trade it for any amount of money. So I didn't. When Sandra and I travel, we just threw caution to the wind and said it'll get paid for somehow. Yeah, and it got paid for until it finally didn't get paid for. So
sure, but you have peace of mind.
Now we're up the creek. I have to get a Patreon account.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Sure.
I don't think it'll get us out of trouble, but anyway, that's life. You deal with it.
Yeah, you deal with it. Perfect. Okay. All right. So next, did I get everyone? If I missed anyone, please speak up. I think I did ask everyone, I believe. Okay. All right. Next part is about relationships. This whole section, a relationship heading for the rocks. Are you a loser if you do nothing? Just keep repeating the same strategies, hoping for a different result. Or the alternative, do you have the willingness and motivation to try a different path? Steve, this one's for you, buddy. Steve-O. Steve.
Okay. What's the question again? I didn't hear it. Sorry.
That's all right. A relationship
What-
heading for the rocks. Are you a loser if you do nothing? Just keep repeating the same strategies, hoping for a different result? Or the alternative, do you have the willingness and motivation to try a different path?
Well, like I learned in Celebrate Recovery, the definition of insanity is
Yep.
doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yep.
So I would say the loser is the one who does something over and over, expecting a different result.
I would agree.
You know, with the one exception of prayer.
Okay.
That Jesus taught us in Scripture to pray like that. Whether it changes or it doesn't, he said, you know, he gave the example of the unjust judge and the woman going before him over and over and over again until she wore him out.
Yeah.
And that he gave in and gave her what she asked. And that's how we're supposed to approach God in prayer.
Yeah.
And that how much more would God answer your prayer more than the unjust judge would?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point.
So, you know.
Cool. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate your answer. Mike W.
What was the question again?
Relationship heading for the rocks. Are you a loser if you do nothing? Just keep repeating the same strategies, hoping for a different result? Or the alternative, do you have the willingness and motivation to try a different path?
I am definitely down with a different path.
Okay. Okay.
But just to get back to what real quick, because I got some time now. So what's a good day for? Is Saturday a good day to do that, Jason?
During the day, but at night it's not good. During the week, the only days I have free are Tuesday and Thursday at night.
Tuesday and Thursday at night?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe like Saturday during the day. Would that work then?
Yeah, during the day. You just have to check with me what day you're planning it, and I'll get with you on that.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Is it anybody else in this panel can help me out with that? Like come in and act for me?
I can definitely do it. I mean,
right on. Yeah, Esteban's helped out in the past. Cool. Right on. Steve, are you down for Saturday?
I think people are going to be willing to help you, Mike. Get things started and stuff. So if you write the script and get it all together, or whatever you're going to do for the people that are included, and pick a time, I guess. And I'm sure most people would be willing to help if they can.
Right on. Cool. Hey, thanks, Alex. Awesome sauce.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Matthias?
Again, no. No, you're not a loser if you're following what God's telling you to do.
Right.
But I would say that if God's telling you to move one way and you're going opposite, saved or not, you might get swallowed up by a whale.
That's true.
So I would say that don't worry about being a loser. Don't worry about what people say. Don't even worry about what you feel. Just worry about your relationship with God and where He's leading you. Because if you are His, then He's setting you up for opportunities one way or another to share His truth. If you aren't His, then He's trying to bring you through different places to where you'll be able to see Him clearly.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Either way, you're not a loser if you're leaning on Him for your understanding.
I love it. Thanks, Matthias. Hendrik said, "I'm already like Jonah, and I'm trying to get out of that. LOL." And then Alex says, "Yeah, me too. I'm learning the hard way." And then Mike Elder says, plan A never works, so you must believe in plan B, which deals with all the contingencies. Awesome. You guys are great in the chat. Thanks for being here. Esteban, buddy, again, so a relationship heading for the rocks. Are you a loser if you do nothing? Just keep repeating the same strategies, hoping for a different result. Or the alternative, do you have the willingness or motivation to try a different path?
When you're focusing, I would have to say, when you're focusing on Christ and what He did, things seem to fall in place exactly where God wants it to be.
Okay.
So I would have to go with that. Yeah, it's that. It's exactly that. The more you focus on Him, the less worries you have about anything.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Jen?
I'd say ditto on that answer, and also Matthias's. And I'll just share real quick.
Okay, great.
With having left a really unfortunate abusive situation, I think sometimes people look at divorcees as losers.
Sure.
Honestly, I consider myself a winner because God used it, and He is still using it. And I think He can use anything. I think even people that stay in situations that maybe they should be getting out of, and honestly, maybe I should have gotten out of the situation earlier instead of feeling like I needed to prove to somebody that I could make it when it was just killing me. So,
sure.
But again, I don't look at it as a waste. God and I became so close through the whole thing, and even more so now. And I'm just ecstatic at how close Him and I have gotten. So I really like Matthias's answer and Esteban's too.
Awesome.
I don't think there's any losers if you're clinging to God.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Appreciate that. Glenn?
Even if I don't have a plan B, if I take plan A, I'm a big loser. Because what am I doing? I think I'm just being a total idiot.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to subject myself to that. So I'll step aside and wait for plan B to reveal its course. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks. I'll keep it short.
No problem. Thank you. All right. The last real question for tonight, and I think we'll have time to get to this. It's getting close to 11, but we don't necessarily try to just quit at 11. We just try to keep them short because
No, let's keep going.
Keep going? Okay.
I had coffee. Let's go all night.
Let's go. Okay. Beliefs is another touchy subject. How often do people with one set of beliefs or interpretation look at others as losers? Why does it seem to come down to semantics more than it does love and respect? Wow. Beliefs is another touchy subject. It is indeed. How often do people with one set of beliefs or interpretation look at others as losers? Why does it seem to come down to semantics more than it does love and respect? We'll start with Mike W. on this one.
Awesome. Well, I like that question. So, I think with beliefs, I can relate that to people who are Christians and whatnot, right?
Sure.
But I guess it's similar. Like for people who are like, I believe in science, or it doesn't have to be Christian. It could be there's all kinds of really passionate, strong viewpoints people have. But I'm going to use it related to specifically Christianity because I'm more familiar with it.
Okay.
So, I think it's a lot of things that people do, and it has to do with like people don't want to be wrong, right? They always want to be right because it validates their whole existence.
Yes.
I think, right? And so that's part of it. So specifically when you're dealing with God, then you feel like people feel like they're empowered, like they're because they're dealing with this huge power that it makes them, and of course the people around them, they're always wrong because you're the one with the power, you're the one with that direct connection. So you feel validated in diminishing the other person. That might not be the intention, but it's So there's no need to listen to what the other person has to say, because you already know, because you have God. What could they possibly know, right?
Yeah.
And so so I think but it could be science or whatever thing is. So part is that people don't want to be wrong, so they have to keep proving themselves right, because they don't want a chance guessing everything that they've ever done. But even if they are right, it doesn't really matter anyway, because they already assume that whatever it is they're coming from validates, no matter how you slice it. It's an invalid way of looking at the world to not respect where the other person's coming from, right? And I don't think any good can come from that, even if with the best of intentions. So I think that's part of it. The other thing is that, like, it depends. I think it depends on the situation, because not all motivations are exactly the same. But I think some people are like, they get off on telling somebody that they're wrong, like, and that has to do with, I think, there's a hole inside somebody so it's the opposite, where someone thinks they have everything, so they feel the need to tell people what to do. But the opposite side of that is like, I don't have anything. There's a hole inside of me that needs to be filled. And so since I feel empty, then I need to make you feel empty. So you're wrong. You're right. I'm right. You're wrong. And that alone leads to, like, all these arguments and stuff.
Agreed.
So, right. So regardless of what you're trying to achieve, if you're going to make a meaningful relationship with the person that you're near, you have to be able to. It's more of it's less of proactive rather than being receptive to what they have to tell you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do know what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. You got to be able to listen to the other person rather than tell them something. And once you can listen to something and respect where they're coming from and value what their experiences are too, then that's the only time you can get any kind of meaningful dialogue.
Wow. Mike, I love your answer. Amen.
Yeah, amen. Seriously.
Amen.
That is the only way to have healthy communication and thereby a healthy relationship.
Yes.
Right. Hence the reason why, Jen, you need to communicate with me more. Right.
Of
See how that whole ties in full
Mike,
circle.
you're
Right.
I'm gonna have to mute.
Steve, since you weighed in there, you get the next shot at it. This particular question. Need me to read it again, or do you have it down?
Please do.
Okay. Belief is another touchy subject. How often do people with one set of beliefs or interpretation look at others as losers? Why does it seem to come down to semantics more than it does love and respect?
Man.
Yep.
Y'all are like taking all my answers tonight.
Yeah.
That's why we had the word ditto.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Do you have a playback mix of Mike's answer?
Yeah, play Mike's answer back. Unfortunately, we don't have
for
that.
real, that's like, you know.
You can say ditto if his answer encompasses what you want.
I'll just add that, like, the number one thing in that is respect. It really comes down to respecting each other. And I think that's why, Jesus said, now I'm going to use the scripture that is very often heard in a negative light, and I'm going to try to make it positive. So when I say it, don't think I'm going negative on y'all, because I think that's why Jesus said, don't cast your pearls before swine.
Okay.
Not that the person is a pig or, a rotten person, but just if you're not going to respect each other, what's the point?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if you're dealing with someone who's not respecting your beliefs, then you don't need to discuss it. If they are willing to respect your beliefs, okay, and vice versa. Like, there have been plenty of times where I've had better conversations with an atheist. Not just, Glenn's been awesome too, but I have I've made several good friendships with atheists simply because I respected them as a person and where they were, what they think, and they respected me and what I thought, and we were actually able to dialogue about religion, believe it or not. You
Yeah.
know, and most people that are on two opposite sides of whether it's belief or politics or anything, it all came down to you know it all came down it all comes down to respect or no respect,
Right.
or if you're going to have a dialogue or not. Now when it comes to preaching the gospel, there's some there's some things there depending on who if you're talking to a person or you're preaching to a crowd.
Agreed.
So if you're talking to a person, respect is key.
Yeah.
If you're preaching to a crowd, you know, then you're preaching to a crowd. That's you can't take into account every single person there.
Sure.
If you get someone out of the audience, say, "Hey, I have a question," like oftentimes you see with street preachers,
Uh-huh.
then respect is definitely key.
Sure.
And each person willing to listen. But if they're not willing to listen, then um, again, what's the point of saying what you're going to say if they're not going to listen?
Yeah. Agreed.
I think to me, that's what that scripture is saying. Not like, you know, this person is swine and they're a horrible human being or they're
Right.
sinful, and because we're all sinful at the end of the day. That's why Jesus died on the cross, because we are sinful.
I agree.
And if you have Christ, I will copy Matthias's answer. You're not a loser.
Yeah. Okay.
And I will say you're not a loser in the broad sense of the fact that if you're not a believer, I still care about you and love you as a person, and God does too. And He wants you to not be His enemy, but be His child, be His friend, be His, be His beloved.
Right.
And you get that by just believing in Him, by trusting in Him, by Jesus,
Right.
His death, burial, and resurrection.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Before we move to the next person, Hendricks said it. He said first, it depends on the audience, really, and then he said, I mean, if you're coming up against people who hate you or hate your gospel, you just need to tell them off and leave, is what Hendricks says. Tell them off and leave. And Mike Elder says it takes a lifetime to gain respect and a moment to lose it, and how true that is. Thanks, guys. Matthias, you're up next. Belief is another touchy subject. How often do people with one set of beliefs or interpretation look at others as losers? Why does it seem to come down to semantics more than it does love and respect?
To answer the question as it's written, how often do people with one set of beliefs or interpretations look at others as losers? Very often.
Yeah.
But they're all losers for doing that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't look at anybody as losers because you have a different set of belief.
Right.
Now, those who are without Christ are lost.
Right.
They're on the losing side, but losers is just a horrible condemnation. In today's world, it's just a mean thing to say. You loser, So I don't think anybody's a loser if they're being honest. Now, why does it seem to come down to semantics more than it does love and respect? Well, I think to make sure that semantics aren't part of the problem is part of what being loving and with respect. Because sometimes semantics are the issue and that people do believe the same, but others, it's not semantics. And they're actually believing a gospel that's going to lead them to hell in a works-based way.
Right. Right.
So to find out if it is semantics or not, taking the time to go over that with people is a way of showing love and respect.
Right. Okay. Perfect.
So I don't think anybody should look down on others for the way that for what they believe. If you're looking down on somebody, how can you help them up?
Right. Oh, yeah, that's a great point. Thanks a lot, Matthias. Esteban, you're up next, my friend. Do I need to read the question again, or do you think you have it?
I can. I think I have it.
Okay.
What I was gonna say is listen to what the person has to say.
Mhm.
I can give an example. I'm not gonna say the person's name or nothing, but
Okay, good.
I went through a similar situation with this person, and they thought that the evil that sorry, not evil. They thought that the Old Testament God was the evil God,
Oh,
and they
right.
thought the New Testament God was the good God.
Okay.
So I let them speak, and then because I saw what Jesus did in like Matthew and all that, he questioned. He gave them a question.
He sure did.
Instead of giving them an answer, give them a question to ponder.
Yeah.
So like when that person started doing that, I said, but in Romans, I didn't at the time I could remember the chapter, but right now I can't for some reason. He was talking about Abraham in the Old Testament, and I said, how does that sound to you? Does that sound like a God that may be evil in the Old Testament, or does it sound like a just and faithful God?
Wow.
And I said, and that's all I'm asking you, and I'm leaving it at that. And then I just, let them think about it. I'm not going to tell them what to believe or anything like that. It's their
Right.
choice.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Thanks, Esteban. Appreciate it. I like your answer. Jen?
I don't know how to answer this question.
Okay.
Have you answered yet?
No.
Yeah. I'm just gonna pass. My mind's kind of like scrambled right now.
No problem. That's okay. Glenn, do you have a comment you want to make on this one?
Yeah. It's obvious, I would imagine, to all and sundry that this is pretty pointed, and it relates to Steve's recent video, which is titled, "I'm sorry to whomever I have hurt you in my passion for the gospel and scripture." Well, I watched this video and I sort of sat there, my mouth open. I was pretty totally dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Number one is why Steve even felt the need to even make such a video. But number two, a question for Steve. Did you feel like a loser when you felt prompted to make that apology video, or why'd you do it? What was in you that led you to feel you had to do that? Apologize for your own passion.
Steve? If you feel like you can answer that, you're more than welcome.
Well, because I number one, no, I don't think I felt like a loser and needed to do that per se. But at the same time, I also know myself, and that I have had a lifelong struggle with certain things, especially with speech and speaking and interrupting. And I know that I have had the tendency to come across as being a know it all or being disrespectful, and it not being on purpose. And that I had this feeling like, and believe it was from the Holy Spirit, that there were some out there in our community that I have hurt by um, that character flaw that is just part of who I am, that I have been working on my whole life. And so it's something that people are offended by sometimes, and I don't mean to. And I want people to know that I don't mean harm by by how I talk with people. And when I get excited and passionate, I do have a tendency to zero in on something and stay there and like pound it into the pavement. And I don't mean to do that to hurt, but sometimes it does hurt people.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, I want the message of the gospel to be the number one thing, not how I, make the dialogue happen, especially if it's in dialogue. And, you know, because I struggle with that and a lot of people don't, they don't understand that I'm not doing it on purpose.
Right.
Unless I explain it so they know.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, if they still think I'm doing it on purpose, I can't change that. But if I at least put it out there and say, hey, look, this is who I am. I've been struggling with this my whole life. I work on it all the time. I really try not to. But at the end of the day, I still do sometimes. It's not on purpose. If I have offended you, I am sorry.
Okay.
I don't do it on purpose.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for clearing that up, Steve. That's good info. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Glenn, for your question, and thank you, Steve, for being willing to
Thank
share.
you.
Part of my answer, this whole situation really annoyed me and irritated me. The thing with Steve and the whole thing leading up to him feeling like he needed to apologize, and maybe feelings are going to be hurt, and they're it's not my intention to do that, but I feel like where Steve is involved, I feel like there's not grace given from people that preach grace, and they think that they at least say that they understand it, but I'm not seeing the words match the actions when it comes to Steve. And I think I don't like it. I don't like it, and it makes me uncomfortable. And obviously, it makes other people. I'm not. Glenn's on the panel, so Glenn can answer. I'm not trying to speak for him, but I think it makes him uncomfortable as well, and a few other people that I've talked to about this.
It makes me very uncomfortable because I think it's a heap of garbage.
Yeah.
I think it's like I'd say that I come to know Steve pretty well, and the absolute last thing that I would expect Steve to want to do is to apologise for being himself, because there's a man of integrity in that body, and I think his intentions are so honourable. I trust him, and whether he believes in God or he doesn't, I trust him regardless, 100%.
Right. Are you able to take that in, Steve?
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. That means so much. You really have no idea how much that means to me, especially given the fact that we are, in all intents and purposes, by our own confession, on opposite sides of the coin of belief. But the fact that even with that, you still respect me, and I would say love me, and I feel the same.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing at the end of the day. And thank you for your kind words, comforting words, and encouraging words.
Yeah.
It means so much.
Yeah. So this should be concerning to people that, again, they're for all confessions are believers, and yet they tend to single Steve out and make big deals out of what he admits that he struggles with. Where someone like Glenn, for instance, sees the authenticity and sees to the heart of Steve and takes that in consideration, and not judging him, understanding that we're all human, we all struggle with one thing or another, and it's not a reason to cast someone aside. It's a reason to come alongside them, and in general, this is what's irritating me about the church, and I'm using quotations, the church, not the brick and mortar church, but the body of people that claim to be believers. It's almost as if they apply grace as long as they're not annoyed or irritated by someone, and then if they're irritated or annoyed by someone, then there's a limit. It's like there's a limit to the amount that they can stand, and it's frustrating. I don't think that there's ever an end to grace. At least there's not to God's grace, and to whom much is given, much is required. And certainly, God has given me so much grace in my life, and I know that without Him, I'm a wretched person and deserving of eternal separation from Him. So, knowing that He's done a great deal for me and given me a tremendous amount of grace, I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, but I try to extend that grace to others. If they annoy me and irritate me, I give them a long leash, so to speak, or a long bit of grace to live in, and that should I just expect that from other people. Mike?
Oh, I was just laughing what Jen wrote. Bugs Bunny.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Please do.
Where it says sin much more did abound, grace abounded more.
Mm-hmm.
In the scripture, I'm probably misquoting it, but it's true. Like, we're supposed to love ourselves, love yourself as you love your neighbor. Love yourself as you love your neighbor.
Exactly.
Maybe I'm saying it wrong, right?
Love your neighbors yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it tells us in the scriptures, if you're not that way, people start to question, are you really saved? Because they're like, believers are supposed to love one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Through everything, and that's not hard, guys. I mean, it's not hard to love one another as you love yourself. And I don't know what's going on with Steve, and I pray for you, Steve. I'm sorry that this has happened to you. I really am, in the bottom of my heart. I'm so sorry that this has happened to you, and I hope things get better for you.
I haven't watched the video yet, so I know a little bit about what's going on, Steve. But other than that part, I didn't watch that specifically. But I find it hard to believe that anybody would have a problem with Steve.
Right.
So I don't know. He seems like such a likable person. I don't get it.
Yeah. All right, Steve, do you have any comment you want to make before we move on?
Thank you both to Esteban and Mike. Gosh, I can't say enough,
Yeah, okay.
how much y'all mean to me, and thank you for your kind and encouraging words and your prayers.
Right. Okay, great. All right, well, that's it. We got through the whole thing. I'm very pleased with the turnout. Completely different show than last week. It was Glenn and myself, which was great. So thank you guys, all of you who showed up for the panel tonight. I appreciate you, each and every one of you. So thank you so much. Great topic tonight, and hopefully it was edifying in some way, and that you guys in the chat and listen to the playback got something out of it. And thank you again for everyone in the chat who continues to show up for this little show of ours. It's not taken for granted. You guys, obviously, if you didn't show up, we would just be talking to ourselves. I'm not sure that anybody would listen to that, but
I would.
Yeah.
Me too.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right. So what we'll do is we'll start with Glenn, and we'll give each person a chance to say any closing comments and say goodbye to the chat, and then we'll call it a night. And we'll start with Glenn.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Chat panel. I thought the show went pretty well. And Steve, keep kicking ass, mate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Jen?
Night, guys. So great to hang out with you guys as always. Sorry I bailed on the dudes last weekend. It's not feeling well.
Completely understand, Jen.
Had an unfortunate run-in with the sun.
Yeah, you got baked, literally baked.
Yeah, I was baked sick. Yeah,
Yeah,
not baked
sick.
with marijuana, baked with the sun. Let's just clear that up.
To clarify that,
Oh my gosh! All right, sunburn. They're talking about sunburn here, people.
Sunburn.
Okay. Night, guys.
Night.
Esteban.
Thank you for having me on. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And again, prayers for Steve again. And thank you all. It was awesome getting to talk to everybody. I love doing this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Esteban. Always. Matthias.
Sorry for being late. Took a little bit longer at the restaurant than we expected. We tried rushing.
It was worth it. It was worth. Your comments were worth it, Matthias. How do you like that? They're worth you being late.
They were that. Then that makes sense. Now I'm American again. But it's always a pleasure. The questions talking about jobs and stuff is kind of relieving,
Yeah.
Thinking of different things and
sure.
So really enjoyed it, and having everybody on the panel, listening to everybody's input, that was great. So hope you guys have a blessed night. God bless.
Perfect. And just for those of you that listen to Monday's Milk, we'll be starting at 8 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time, instead of 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Right. David gets up at 4 a.m. every night, so just trying to meet his schedule a little bit because he'll be our guest host for tomorrow, and then Esteban, I think, will be next Mondays if he already said he would be ready to step in. So
awesome. Yeah, I'm really enjoying that. We have guest hosts on Talking Doctrine for the Monday's Milk Show. It's working out very well. Last week we had Matthias step back in, and he'll be doing that occasionally. So if you haven't listened to that and Talking Doctrine on Mondays, please tune in tomorrow night at 8 p.m. It's really always edifying, and it's really it's awesome for me. I enjoy doing it. Thanks a lot, Matthias. And Mike W.
I'm just going to edit it on this note.
Nice.
Right. Clown sound.
Jen, did you do that or did he make that?
Yeah, that was my nose.
That was awesome. Do it again. Wait, no, do the whole. Hold on. Mike, do yours again, and then right after it, Jen, do yours.
Okay.
Right, to get the clown sound.
Oh, that's perfect. That's a perfect way to end the show. I love it. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you being on the panel tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
No problem. Steve?
Yow. Thank you for having me on. And again, thank you, everybody, for all your kind words. And thank you for my friends. And thank you for just having me on and showing me love. And I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to have Jesus in my life to carry me through the roughest storms of life, and then to lead me beside the still waters as well.
Amen.
Amen.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Amen.
Amen. Amen, brother. All right. That's it.
Clowns.
That's it, guys. Again, thank you.
Did Glenn say goodnight?
Yeah, he said first.
Okay.
I did him first. Thanks for checking. I appreciate that, Jen. I don't want to leave anyone out. So again, thank you for the panel, and thank you for the chat, for showing up. You guys are awesome as usual. And tune in next week for another episode at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. And we'll try not to have any more breaks for a while. I think we'll be okay for a while. And just in passing, I'll read the end of this writing that Glenn put in there because I feel like it's so important. So Steve, this is one more time for you. Steve, this one is for you. Seriously, if a person of integrity feels the need to apologize for what they wholeheartedly believe, where does that leave the rest of us? Is awakening the very instant one realizes that certain people need to be left behind and others embraced? Yourself, for instance.
Yes. I do not apologize for what I believe. I want to make that clear if that wasn't understood with my clarification of my apology video and the apology video itself. But no, I'm not apologizing for what I believe. I'm apologizing if I have hurt in the just way I do things sometimes. That isn't intended to be hurtful, but I know it has in the past. And I felt the leading of the Holy Spirit to make that known, that, in case there's some that don't know that or really understand that about me and have made a different conclusion because they don't understand.
Okay.
So
thanks.
No, I don't apologize for the gospel. Like my newest favorite Christian rapper says, when it comes to the gospel, I got no chill.
Wiki wiki.
All right, guys, that's it. So thank you for being part of another episode of True Story Live, and we will see you guys next week. I hope the rest of your week goes well, this week coming up. And thanks again. And until then, good night and God bless. Thanks for joining. Good night.